Good morning, beautiful people of planet Earth and all other interdimensional entities. Welcome to Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. It's very humid today, very humid. It even says so on my laptop. So I've come inside with the air conditioning and thought I'd relax by reading you more stories from Mysteries of the Unexplained. I haven't had a lot of sleep, so I may drift in and out of ordinary reality, but had a wonderful time last night dancing for Ramjet at the Brooklyn Standard, and there were no weirdos and creeps or females with wandering inappropriate fingers, although I did get kind of harassed by these fucking weirdos that are regulars towards the end of the night, trying to dominate me as they do when they're drunk. So Mama T did what she does best and just kept dancing and held her own. But it's hard work. It's hard work dealing with the feckin' idiots. But anyway, I don't particularly like those women and they know it. So they consistently kind of go out of their way to annoy me. Actually, they waited till the end of the night because they hung back and watched me for quite some time, which is fine, I don't mind that so much. You're allowed to bloody enjoy yourself. But they couldn't resist, trying to be a pain in my ass. But apart from those people, I had a wonderful night. And at least they weren't predatory in the sense of, literally trying to assault me, because it was just gross. And anyway, I had a word to the security manager, Richard, and asked him to keep an eye on me, which he did indeed do. So thank you, Richard. Very kind of you, and it helps enhance my night when I feel safe and relaxed and can get into my dance and emanate the way I do. Mind you, I emanated that night when that evil fucking thing did what she did to me. I emanated so fucking hard. Triumphantly and defiantly. But yeah, I don't want to be in that headspace of acting out from the space of basically being victimised and terrorised and having to go into fierce warrior goddess Bodhisattva mode, because that's actually dangerous, people. I don't want to get tipped over the edge and fucking snap. It's not cool. But anyway, I had a beautiful night last night. Beautiful night. And I've had many beautiful nights at the Brooklyn Standard. So actually it was cute when I arrived. Richard looked at me and said, "Where have you been?" When I told him why I hadn't been for a few weeks, he was quite shocked too. Said I had to take a break from my mental health, Richard, but I'm back with bells on. He nodded, very kind, supportive man. So most of the staff and management in the Brooklyn Standard have been very kind and supportive of me. So I continue my dancing for as long as my beautiful bands play there. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink, say no more, boo-boos. And, when they go to other venues, I guess I will, out of loyalty, follow them too. But I will still put in appearances at the Brooklyn Standard because I love it there. I love it. They've been very kind to me and soul nourishing. My beautiful Taylor, the bartender, was, so happy to see me when I arrived too. Gave me a hug, and he's very, very tall. I'm very, very short. He had to bend down like this to hug me. Oh, he's a sweet young man. He was telling me that he's only going to be working 2 nights, Friday and Saturdays now. I said, "Oh, my favourite people are all drifting away." I'm a bit upset about that. I really am. But he said, oh, you'll get to know new stuff, which is true. Life goes on, people. But anyway, I'm going to add him on my Facebook because he's been such a sweet, sweet young man to me and a true friend. So the only thing I'm always hesitant to let people on my Facebook because of my mad, insane, thought processing and writings can be a bit confronting to a lot of people and trigger them. So I'm sort of wary on that basis. But I said to him, now that you're no longer working here all the time, and I want to maintain some kind of contact with you and his partner, of course. He was telling me, he said, oh, my relationship's deepening, getting very serious, and then he showed me a photo of his girlfriend, Beck. Oh, she's a lovely girl. I did meet her. I met her at the 10th birthday celebrations. Lovely young girl. He said she's been such a supportive partner to me and so wonderful. I said, that's the one. The ones that support you and back you no matter what, no matter who. That's the one. That's the one you make a commitment to. Anyway, I'm proud of him as if he was my own son, which of course he isn't my son. I don't have any sons. My daughters have abandoned and rejected and outcast me. So what have I got but just a few sweet souls that are kind to me in my dance space, and that's it. That's it. And my friend Lynn and Sally in New Zealand and Jared doing what he's doing in his own little world. My sweet little darling. I'll have to drag him up from the abyss. I'll have to ring him and say, call me back or else. Usually I let it go for a few weeks or months. Don't let good friendships fail, because good friendships that have stood the test of time are more precious to me than my own family ever were, because they were monstrous. I've worked hard to maintain relationships with good, true, loyal, loving friends. 33 fucking years. I'm a long hauler. But anyway, sometimes when people are sick of you, you just got to let them go. Anyway, I don't think it's that he's sick of me per se. I think he's just busy in his own little world. And I won't freak out about it. This has been a pattern since 2020. I wanted to read about, and I will read about it, zombies. Since I'm kind of a zombie, like I'm not under the influence of a voodoo curse, or maybe I was back in the day, not able to function and sleeping 20 hours a day and shuffling and drooling and heavy psych meds. It was a kind of a zombie existence. My mother did do black fucking hoodoo spells on me, so there is that. But I'm a revivified zombie. Probably makes me even more amazing and powerful and magical than most, because most actual zombies don't survive that. Just saying. But this chapter segues more than me on one of my mad emotional rants. It started off going on about cattle mutilation, then jumped to demons and exorcisms, and then randomly goes on to what I want to read about, hexing people to death and zombieism. So I'm not going to read the demon and exorcism thing because I just don't want to bring that energy into my gnosis, but I don't have any problem with zombies. Oh, the irony. didn't have any problem reading about spontaneous combustion. So what is it I'm afraid of, people of Earth? Being demon-possessed and needing an exorcism. Actually, it is a very tiny slight fear, because as a Jew, it's not like I can call an old priest and a young priest, is it? Look, I had quite a few, 3 rabbis who were very loving and supportive of me, but I couldn't exactly go up and go, Rabbi, I think I'm possessed, can you do an exorcism? They would just, 2 of them would have just laughed at me because they were unbelievers. And the one rabbi who would have understood, the Chabad rabbi, would have freaked the fuck out. Not dealing with you, Mrs. Aarons. I'm not dealing with you. Here's a book of Psalms. Which I did indeed get gifted by a former Chabad friend. Which from time to time I have utilised, and does bring me some modicum of comfort. So, historically I've had to perform my own exorcisms when I felt like I'm immersed in too much fucking darkness that doesn't belong to me. And, it's intense, people of Earth, but it scares the neighbours. I did one year. It was just before Christmas one year. Oh, what year was that? It was before COVID too. Or was it during COVID? Anyway, I pulled out all stops. I went round with my book of Psalms, praying. I went round the whole perimeter, all around my land here. It's not my land, but the land upon which I reside. And I salted the entire perimeter. And then all the neighbours were peeping behind curtains because they've never seen anything like it. A real witch casting out her own fucking demons. It was actually powerful though, because I could feel its energy. It was like my mad mosh, where the energy just builds and builds and builds and builds and reaches fucking cathartic kind of peak. I could feel it building and building, and I was like, oh, yeah, my angels are showing me this was the right thing to do. They were backing me all the way. I literally, keep going, Tony, keep going, Tony. And I'd be like praying and muttering, and at one point, one of the Psalms talked about standing with 1 foot in the river and 1 foot on land, and I mean, you have to laugh. It was kind of comical. Neighbours have moved away from that house now. I think I scared them so much, but they were idiots anyway, quite frankly. Because they used to spy on me, all fascinated. Even the husband would come up from work and sit out a cup of tea watching me. This was 24/7, people. I was like, you need to get a life. I'm not that fucking fascinating. But they just never seen anything like it, I guess. But anyway, I got to this part where there was this water pouring all down the guttering from someone had washed their car or some shit, and there was water running. And so when I reached the peak in catharsis and the praying and casting out demons, it was just at the point where I'm just standing looking at all this water, and as I read the psalm, I'm like screaming it out, I'm like, imitating life for the love of all the gods. And the mad neighbours, they were bonkers. They were like, because they realised that I was actually paraphrasing what was actually synchronistically like laid out in front of me by just serendipitous, accident of fate. But anyway, it was hilarious. And I kept down my driveway and pouring salt down both sides of the driveway. I thought, I'll protect my driveway entering into the house as well as the actual perimeter, because anyone who goes from my gates needs protection too. And off I went. And then I ran out of salt. Like, I had a big massive bucket, but I had more. I had bulk salt stored under the house. So I had to go and top up my little bucket, and off I went again. Well, anyway, it was hilarious. But having said that, all jokes aside, whatever it did, it lifted up the energy. Didn't stop my pets from dying though, did it? Don't get me started on that. But, I got rid of whatever malevolent thing was dogging me at the time. So it works, people, but you've got to put a lot of energy and a lot of intent into it. And, like I said, I don't ever want to be fully possessed. Maybe I am already and don't know it. All jokes aside. But I don't want that because, like I said, it's not too many priests I would trust with my soul anymore, given the taintedness in that religion, need we say more. And, it's hard to find a real Kabbalist that could perform an exorcism on me too. I had a beautiful Kabbalist rabbi, actually. He was a beautiful man, beautiful soul, a wonderful man, him and his wife. And he was my conversion rabbi that I studied Orthodox Judaism under, and from the Yemen, and a very kind soul. He was actually a Kabbalist, he told me. To be a true Kabbalist, you have to be a very righteous, honouring, respectful and respectable, decent man. And anyway, it all went sour because this community here in Brisbane is so profoundly evil. They undermined his career, actually. Vicious they were. And anyway, he moved down to Sydney with his wife and son and daughter. I think they had a daughter as well. And then when he got dementia, he was having flashbacks of memories of all the upset and horror that, happened. And it was all fixated on me because it was all about me in a way, because they persecuted that man because he was supportive of me in his professional capacity as my rabbi. Or they were vicious. So he was fixating on that, and I wanted to go and see him just to let him know that I was okay. I think in his mind, as it was dementing, he was worrying for me still 20 fucking years later. Was it 20 years later? Let me think. 10 years later. Anyway, he was so distressed. So I wanted to fly down to Melbourne just to give him comfort and say, I'm all right, Rabbi, I'm okay. I'm a heathen now. I've drifted away from my Jewish roots, but I'm still a Jew in my soul, and I want you to know, Rabbi, I'm okay. I wanted him to give him that gift of peace, right? Because he was so distressed, worrying about me constantly, like a father. By the way, I never had any decent fathering. 5 men couldn't father me properly in my childhood. So I valued that rabbi deeply for his kindness towards me. A true mensch, a true Kabbalist, and a true father figure. Anyway, I wanted to go to him and say, everything's okay. You can relax. I'm safe. Drifted away from that rotten, toxic community that tried to destroy me and you. And but I'm okay. I'm living my best life. I'm still walking with the Holy One, but in very shamanic, unusual ways now. And I wanted to let him, have comfort and ease and peace in as his mind was unravelling. Anyway, that former friend blocked it. It was vicious. That's why she's a former friend to this day. No comprehension that I had a deep love for that rabbi, a sacred, holy love, pure, untainted, kind, honouring, but they denied him even that last goodbye. The motherfuckers. Motherfuckery beyond belief. Anyway, wherever you are, Rabbi Cohen, rest in peace. There's nothing else you could have done in this fucking demonic Brisbane hellscape that we've both barely survived. Well, anyway, On that note, let us continue reading. I'm going to read, although I didn't want to read about exorcisms, they're giving a psychological perspective on it. So I'll read that little blurb there, and then I'll go on about reading about pointing the bone type hexes by the gods. Possession, epilepsy or hysteria. As far as many doctors and psychiatrists are concerned, the diagnosis of demonic possession is one that reeks of medieval superstition and ignorance, and the symptoms that lead to it are subject either to a wide range of medical and psychiatric interpretations, or to being dismissed as misperceptions or hallucinations. Other medical and psychological conditions likely to produce symptoms confused with those of possession are epilepsy, hysteria, and multiple personality. Multiple personalities are formed when your mind fractures over extreme traumatic events, complex cumulative trauma. During a convulsive seizure, a person with epilepsy can experience extreme muscular rigidity and foam at the mouth, and is sometimes subject to rapid back and forth head movements. The face may be distorted, and strange guttural noises may be produced by a spasm of the throat muscles. During the period immediately before a seizure, the patient may experience auditory and visual hallucinations and various sensory distortions. Most seizures last no more than 5 minutes. All these symptoms may also be present in a person diagnosed by the church as suffering from possession. But there are distinguishing characteristics. The first of these is that a demonic attack can continue for many hours. Extreme liveliness rather than rigidity is characteristic, and muscular reflexes tend to be strong. According to the Roman ritual, other signs of possession include the ability to speak with some familiarity in a strange tongue or to understand it when spoken by another, the faculty of divulging future and hidden events, and the display of powers that are beyond the subject's age and natural condition. Hysteria also produces many of the symptoms of possession. The following description by a female hysteric was recorded at the turn of the century by Professor Paul Richter, a doctor at La Salpêtrière, a famous hospital in Paris for mental disturbances. Suddenly we heard loud cries and shouting. Her body, which went through a series of elaborate motions, was either in the throes of wild gyrations or catatonically motionless. Her legs became entangled, then disentangled. Her arms twisted and disjointed, her wrists bent. Some of her fingers were stretched out straight, while others were twisted. The body was either bent in a semicircle or loose-limbed. Her head was at times thrown to the right or left, or, when thrown backward with vehemence, seemed to emerge from a bloated neck. The face alternately mirrored horror, anger, and sometimes fury. It was bloated and showed shades of violet in its coloration. Sort of looks like my dad when my mother used to ride him like a bitch and try and get him to crack and go berserk. Could go on all day too. Oh, she was evil, that piece of shit. My father was no angel, but she knew he was mentally unstable, and she would ride on him and ride on him, right until his vessels burst in his eyes, and he would indeed be a very veritable shade of almost fucking purple. That I thought he was going to just spontaneously combust one day. I don't know how he didn't. I don't know how he didn't kill my mother either. He was never violent to her. To my knowledge, I never saw him physically ever hit her. I mean, they screamed constantly and threw things, and there was financial kind of abuse in many ways. Like, for example, when we were on the cruise ship to Germany, he stopped paying the mortgage, shit like that. But son of a bitch. But anyway, but he wasn't violent, and but he would do things like take his rage out by smashing up the washing machine. Or the day we boarded ship, he smashed the bathroom window, and like that kind of violence, but never actually hit my mother. I don't know how he didn't, because I remember being 5 years old when I saw the blood vessels burst in his eyes, and I thought, my God, he's going to start hitting my mother. He's going to kill us both. It was that scary. So I put my little arms around him and I said, don't worry, Daddy, I still love you. And he broke down and burst into tears, and the fight was over. Only because I shamed my mother. She could see that she'd gone too fucking far. Oh, she was a monster. She really was. It's because of her filthy fucking pedophile enabling viciousness and actual spells she did on me too that I found in her pantry when I had to clear out her house in 2008, that I've never been able to find a real love partner. I have men who love me very, very much, but they're platonic friends, and most men are too fucking terrified of my witchy ways and my shamanic ways to take me on anyway. And I'm okay with that. I walk with my gods daily and nightly. They have kept me alive, even, as I say, yesterday, against my own will at times. They helped me survive my fucking family of origin. Trust me, that wasn't easy to survive. So, I'll just segue there because the mention of violet and coloration brought all that back to me. Anger can be a very powerful, productive force if you're angry at the right person, for the right reasons, to the right degree. Other than that, it's destructive and evil and leaves you with psychic fucking holes in your aura that invites the most monstrous things that you beyond your mortal ken in, because you're just a walking beacon for every fucking thing that just goes, ooh, that one's got leaks in its aura, I'm going to feed off that. Ooh, well, there's another hole in that aura, I'm going to feed off that. Fucking psychic vampires. I grew up with them. I know exactly what they're about. They lack their own soul and their own joy and their own light and their own fucking life force. They can only exist by sucking every ounce of goodness out of someone else, including their own babies. Fucking things they were. But anyway, it's a beautiful day. It's segue. It's a beautiful day outside. It's very hot, but it's a beautiful day. And carry on with the story. One of the most striking details in this description is that of the body bent in a semicircle. You see that a lot in movies about exorcisms and the demonic possessed. They literally arch up like a cat does. It's quite bizarre. This is also known as the hysterical arch and is frequently seen in cases of possession. All the other symptoms described above have been observed by exorcists. In addition, the appearance of livid marks on the skin, sometimes resembling bites, letters, or graphic symbols, are also known to be produced by hysterics. Something to think about. Well, I wasn't hysterical when this happened. Just fell down. Cracked my head a bit too. The funny thing is, since I cracked the back of my head, my tooth down here hurts. Every time I smack my head, I lose a tooth. So I'm going to lose another tooth, people, of it. How many times am I going to crack my head and lose a tooth? How long is a piece of string? Anyway, happy thoughts, happy thoughts, happy thoughts. I had a wonderful time last night. I gifted my friend his pendant. That pendant was very difficult to make. I had so much trouble with it. I was fighting with it right until 9 o'clock at night to finish it because I wanted to gift it to him last night. I don't actually think they really give a flying fuck about what I'm doing, why I'm gifting them. I don't think they really comprehend it. But it doesn't matter. It's not just for them, it's for me too. So it's a little soul contract I have with my gods. I've only got one person that I left to gift now, and that's Nathan, but he wasn't there last night to ask what his spiritual walk, or what he would like on his talisman. Basically what I'm making for them all is little gifts of heart and little talismanic things that are meaningful to them. And I'm just to bolster us all up in these fucking dark and evil times. But some of them I don't really think comprehend what it is I'm doing, or don't give a shit. And, I'm okay with that. It doesn't matter. It's I've kept my promise. As I said to Luke, I kept my promise to you. He said, "Oh yeah, you were talking about sacred geometry." I said, "No." He didn't remember. I said, "No, I asked you what you would like, and you said you'd like sacred geometry. And then you said I could make something very simple. But I decided to challenge myself and make something very, very difficult. And it was far too difficult for me, really. So I fought my way through it. He was just like, "Oh yeah." Anyway, so I kind of have to laugh now. But anyway, it turned out nice, but it's nothing fabulous, But I finished it, I completed the task, and I gifted it to him, and I hope he enjoys it. I really do. It's a blessing. They're all my little blessings, and I don't expect anything back for it, or they don't have any soul contract with me. It's just something I wanted to do. It's done now, almost done. There's a couple more people in the club that I'm very fond of that I may make something for as well. But I have to think hard about that because I'm exhausted now. Kind of exhausted. But at the appropriate time I'll get busy and do what needs to be done before I shuffle off this mortal coil, people of Earth. But don't freak out, I'm not planning on going anywhere in the near future. It's always at the appointed time with Santa Muerte and the Holy One, and they'll let me know. They'll let me know when my time is imminent. But anyway, where were we? Oh yes, I segued at graphic symbols on hysterics. You see that sometimes with very devout Catholics they get stigmata and they bleed from their hands. It's a kind of hysterical type thing too. But anyway, I'm not Catholic, but I've studied all this over the years, people of Earth. I've taken great interest in it because it's amazing what the human mind can manifest just consciously or even unconsciously at times, super consciously. The human mind is a powerful, powerful force, and we don't even understand it really completely. And yet we're trying to put neural links in it and turn us into machines. You haven't even tapped into your full potential of your human mind, but you're wanting to shove a machine. Oh, fuck off, you idiot. Sorry, but I get that it might be helpful to someone who's in a vegetative state, or they might be grateful for that level of interference, but it's dangerous. It's dangerous to mess with the human brain. And that's just how I feel about it. And I certainly won't let anyone mess with my brain for what's left of it, squidgy as it is. Right, where were we? Given this partial duplication of symptoms, how does the Church distinguish between hysteria and possession? The determining factor is the context in which the symptoms occur. If they arise in relationship with a hatred of religious objects, or if they are accompanied by paranormal phenomena, the ability to detect religious objects that have been hidden, to understand languages never learned, to levitate, and so on, the Church is likely to consider them manifestations of the devil. That's not actually fair, because I fucking levitated myself once to avoid smashing my head as I fell out of the academy bus. Oh, did they run that straight through the academy before I even got my car and returned to work? That mouth-breathing motherfucker had already told everyone what he witnessed. Asked me how I did it. I said I didn't do it. The angels did it. Should have died that day. I saw the curb coming towards me as I was falling forwards, and I just pulled myself up and turned around, landed on my feet like a pussycat. I still don't know how I did that, but it wasn't a manifestation of the devil. It was something powerful and supernatural, supranatural saved my life that day. Had to, because if I had died that day, my children were still young teenagers. They would have been. The last thought I thought as I was falling forward about to smash my skull open was, please don't let me die. Who will be there to protect my children? That was my last thought, and in an instant, I was lifted up and turned around and put back down on my feet. Without any injury, I just had a mildly sprained ankle. So, that's when I realised I have powerful protection, even then back in the year. Ironically, it was my grandmother Eva's suicide date, but I didn't realise that till much later when I did the ancestry. 8th of March 2000. Something saved my life that day, so I could carry on raising my children who now don't even speak to me. Isn't that weird? Maybe I would have been better off if I'd died that day and Well, we can't think about that, can we? Because I'm here 25, almost 25 years later. It's astonishing, people of Earth. So, that's why I say, never fuck with the Tanya. I have powerful people in my circle of influence, human and non-human. As mysterious as hysteria and as likely to be confused with possession is the multiple personality in which the patient may at different times manifest 1, 2, 3, or even more different personalities, each with its own goals, likes, dislikes, speech patterns, and memories. Each personality may be indifferent or opposed to the others or ignorant of them. I find that fascinating too. Absolutely fascinating. If one or more should have a diabolic cast, the Church has no means of determining whether to treat the case as possession other than the criteria it applies to distinguish hysteria from possession. Those criteria are the hatred of religious objects and the paranormal phenomena referred to earlier. And they are precisely the phenomena that many doctors and psychiatrists are likely to reject as misperceptions or hallucinations on the part of witnesses. Those less sceptical, on the other hand, are likely to view such things as parapsychological, but not as the work of demons. Again, the Church's test is likely to be whether or not the paranormal manifestations occur in the context of a general hatred of religion. I wasn't going to read from the exorcism, but it leads into the bit I wanted to read, so I'll just read the last example story titled A Tragic Case. In November 1973, Anneliese Michel, a young student at the University of Würzburg, West Germany, was taken by her parents to see the parish priest in her hometown of Klingenberg. She had developed some worrisome signs of abnormal behaviour at the university, refusing to eat, flying into violent rages, screaming, and trying to attack those around her, and her parents were deeply concerned. In the priest's view, Anneliese was possessed by demons and he recommended a ritual exorcism. As Roman Catholic Church procedure requires, the case was investigated by a leading authority on exorcism and demonic possession, Father Adolf Rodewijk, an 81-year-old Jesuit. Jesuits often exorcists, I guess because there's such a strict order. Father Rodewijk agreed with the priest's diagnosis, and on his recommendation, the regional bishop, Father Josef Stangl, gave permission for the exorcism to take place. The exorcists chosen for the task were the Reverend Arnold Rentz and the Reverend Ernst Alt. By then, Anneliese had been receiving medical treatment for epilepsy for 4 years. On July 1, 1976, after several months of exorcism, Anneliese died of malnutrition and dehydration at the age of 23. She weighed 70 pounds. They literally fucking let her starve, the bastards. On March 2nd, 1978, the two exorcists and Annaliese's parents were charged with negligent homicide on the grounds that they had allowed the young girl's condition to deteriorate to the point of death without seeking medical help for her. Bishop Stangl and Father Rodovik, who seem not to have known that medical help was being withheld, were not charged. How could they not have known? Surely they would have been informed regularly on that case. In April 1978, the two priests were found guilty and were given suspended prison sentences for 6 months. Always get off lightly, don't they? The monsters. For the Roman Catholic Church, the death of Anneliese Michel was a nightmare come true, demonstrating the dangers inherent in the ritual of exorcism and the murky distinctions between priestly and medical responsibility. In Father Rodovik's own handbook on possession and exorcism, originally published in 1963 and translated into English under the title Possessed by Satan, priests are urged to consider medical explanations for apparent possession. Next to her photo, they have a blurb. Attempts to drive out demons possessing Anneliese Michel of Germany ended in tragedy when medical attention was withheld during the exorcism. The Roman Catholic Church in Germany now requires that a physician be present whenever an exorcism is performed. One would think that is just basic fucking common sense, but, you know, there's that poor little girl, young woman. I mean, I'm quite sure she probably was demon-possessed, but she needed purging of that demon, not starved and dehydrated to death. The bastards. One section of the book, in fact, is titled, Let's Not Always Think of Possession. Father Rodovik, outlining the bishop's responsibilities, says that he may appoint a commission of theologians and physicians to undertake a further investigation, end quote, and warns that the exorcists must guard against playing the role of physician when encountering physiological symptoms. He quotes the authoritative Roman ritual of exorcism. The exorcist should avoid giving or recommending any sort of medication to the possessed. That is the physician's task. Although such statements clearly suggest that the physician may sometimes be needed before and during an exorcism, there is no stipulation that a doctor must be in attendance. This deficiency in church procedure was corrected, at least in Germany, after the conviction of the two priests in the Michel case. In May 1978, the German Bishops' Conference ruled that in the future no exorcisms would be permitted unless a doctor was present. Just one would think would just be common sense. Anyway, I mean, the girl had epileptic seizures as well as whatever else was going on. Right, here we come to what I wanted to begin reading initially. The spear of thought. In many primitive societies, there is the belief that by some means of accepted ritual, a hex or curse can be levelled against an individual, and unless the curse is ritually cancelled, the dire predictions of pain, injury, or death will be fulfilled. Retroactive magic. While he was in the Congo in 1682, the Italian missionary Father Jerome Marola de Sorrento heard a curious story demonstrating the sometimes fatal effects of superstitious fear. During a journey, a young black man had spent the night at a friend's house, and in the morning the friend had prepared a wild hen for breakfast. This was a food that young people were forbidden to eat by inviolable tribal custom, and the visitor asked his friend if the dish he had prepared was really wild hen. The host replied that it was not, and the young guest ate a hearty breakfast. A few years later, the two men met again, and the friend asked his former guest if he would eat a wild hen. No, he said, that was impossible. He had been solemnly warned by a magician never to eat that food. The friend laughed and asked why he should refuse to eat the dish now, when he had been perfectly happy to eat it before. As soon as the guest learned the truth about the breakfast his host had once served him, he began to tremble violently, and within 24 hours was dead, the victim of his own fear. Fear, people of Earth, can be a powerful hex. So remember, fear, F-E-A-R. Face everything and rise. Try not to let superstitions or other people's evil intentions hasten your own death. Rise above it. Deflect it. Reject it. Stand in your own authority. You needed to hear this 5 years ago with COVID, but no one was listening to me then. By the gods. A dramatic reversal. The active ill effects of a curse can immediately cease if the victim believes that he has been released from it. This indicates that the effects of curses, as recorded since ancient times, are psychosomatic, and thus in accord with relatively recent physiological discoveries. The following incident, which occurred in Australia around 1919, was later reported by Dr. S. M. Lambert during his association with the International Health Division of the Rockefeller Foundation. An example of a dramatic reversal. I'm so tired. I had a wonderful time, but I'm tired. An example of a dramatic reversal. It makes the point. At a mission at Mona Mona in North Queensland were many native converts. But on the outskirts of the mission was a group of non-converts, including one Nebo, a famous witch doctor. The chief helper of the missionary was Rob, a native who had been converted. When Dr. Lambert arrived at the mission, he learned that Rob was in distress and that the missionary wanted him examined. Dr. Lambert made the examination, found no fever, no complaint of pain, no symptoms or signs of disease. He was impressed, however, by the obvious indications that Rob was seriously ill and extremely weak. From the missionary he learned that Rob had had a bone pointed at him by Nebo and was convinced that in consequence he must die. Thereupon, Dr. Lambert and the missionary went for Nebo, threatened him sharply that his supply of food would be shut off if anything happened to Rob, and that he and his people would be driven away from the mission. At once Nebo agreed to go with them to see Rob. He leaned over Rob's bed and told the sick man that it was all a mistake, a mere joke. Indeed, that he had not pointed a bone at him at all. I take this very seriously, people of Earth, even as a white woman, as a shaman. The power of the mind. Keep your mind clear and clean and powerful at all times, people of Earth. There are many forces of evil out there, some that you wouldn't even have thought about in your wildest imaginings. So stay clean and clear and pristine as best as you can, because you will need to keep your mind strong and active and healthy to survive whatever the next decade or two our globalists, entities have in store for us. Face everything and rise. Don't let them weaken you. Don't self-immolate. Easier said than done, says she who likes sweets and I spend way too much time on the internet, so I get all that 5G exposure and EMF radiation. It's not easy. We're immersed in it all like a giant fucking soup. But hold your line. Keep yourself as healthy as is humanly possible. Fend off the demonic wherever it comes, but like a multi-pronged attack. Every aspect of your life, mind, body, spirit, soul, intellect and emotions. Rise up. The relief, Dr. Lambert testifies, was almost instantaneous. That evening, Rob was back at work, quite happy again, and in full possession of his physical strength. Amazing, isn't it? I smashed my arm and I went dancing. No matter what, no matter who, If I'm on one of my missions and I've got something I want to do, nobody stops me. Not even my own illnesses at times. Or misadventures like falling on a fucking vice or falling off my chair. How insane was that? But the problem is I used to have like this plastic, matting underneath Charlie's cage, which is, to catch all her poops because she pooped constantly because poor little bugger wasn't well. And so now I don't have that on the floor. When my chair rolls back, there's nothing to kind of catch. It's dangerous. I'm going to have to buy some kind of floor mat to put underneath it because that can't happen again. I could have really been even more badly injured. If I cracked my head on the vice instead of my arm, I would have been, well, potentially dead. So there is that. Here I am, still cooking on gas, babies. Thank you to my angels who protect me. They can't completely protect me from minor injuries, but I'm sure one day when I finally transition this physical body and enter into the next dimension, there'll be this angels and they'll be smoking and strung out, and they'll be like, "Bitch, you drove us mad, you drove us mad. We're so glad you're finally here so we can have a rest at long last." It's a bit like that, seriously. Anyway, you have to laugh. A prophecy self-fulfilled. My angels just yelled out, "We would never call you bitch, Tanya." I'm using that in the vernacular and the vulgarity and the earthy, construct of humour, angels. Work with me, angels, work with me. They're like, okay. They know me too well. They do. They know me better than most other humans. A prophecy self-fulfilled. Getting hot now, getting hot. Aircon's on 23 and suddenly I'm hot. Maybe I'm possessed. No, just mischievous at times. A prophecy self-fulfilled. On a Friday the 13th in 1946, a Georgian midwife was called upon to deliver 3 babies in the same area of the, I'm going to have trouble pronouncing this, Okefenokee Swamp. Okefenokee Swamp in Georgia. Sorry, I can't pronounce your language. If I was demon possessed, I'd be fucking fluent, but I'm not. So we're not inviting that fluency, just saying. We just have to put up with my distortions of language and my earthy, anarchistic, vernacular ways, and life will go on and continuously be beautiful and weird. Sometimes wonderful and magical too. Mama T has spoken. Oh, lovely song. But anyway, continue reading. For some malevolent reason, the woman put a curse on all 3 of the infant girls. Why would you do that? Why would you be so fucking spiteful as to curse baby girls when you're a midwife? I mean, really, I think something cursed me when I was born too. Seriously. My own fucking mother, very likely too. She sat in an abortion clinic with my 14-year-old sister, planning to abort me. Yes, I even failed at that too, although technically that wasn't my failure, but my sister begged for my life. So, I mean, can it get any worse? Even in gestation. I wasn't actually fucking wanted. But anyway, here I am, nearly 60, holding my own. Been doing that since infancy. Cursed or not cursed, I survived all those bastards. Quite proud of that too, but I didn't do it on my own. I had a lot of help. A lot of spiritual protection and help too. By the gods. Literally by the gods. She said that one would die before she was 16 years of age. Another would be dead before she reached 21. And the third would not live to see her 23rd birthday. The first two predictions were violently accurate. One girl at 15 was in a fatal automobile accident. The second was killed by gunfire in a nightclub brawl the night before her 21st birthday. Oh, that's just appalling. 2 years later, in 1969, the third young girl asked to enter a Baltimore hospital, declaring hysterically that she was doomed to die before her 23rd birthday, which was only 3 days away. Although there was apparently nothing wrong with her physically, she was obviously under great emotional stress and was admitted to the hospital for observation. The next morning, just 2 days before the fateful date, the girl was found dead in her bed, the victim, evidently, of her belief in the power of the midwife's curse. The relentless Kurdaitcha, I think they mean Kurdaitcha, but they've spelt it differently. But anyway, we know what they mean. An Aboriginal medicine man or witch doctor or kind of a holy man, but in their tradition and their law. In 1953, an Aborigine named Kinjika was flown from his native Arnhem Land in Australia's Northern Territory to a hospital in Darwin, the territorial capital. He had not been injured or poisoned, was not suffering from any known disease, but he was dying. Kinjika survived for 4 days in great pain after entering the hospital, and on the 5th day he died, the victim of bone pointing, a method of execution or murder that leaves no trace and almost never fails. I know 2 wenches that should have been done to, filthy fucking things that they were, but as a white woman it's not my right to harm them using their own law, but by the gods, those bitches deserve to die for what they put me and my kids through. But anyway, there is that. These carefully modelled implements made of human bones and hair are charged with psychic energy for bone pointing, a ritual execution practiced by Australian Aborigines. Let's have another proper look at it. I've never actually seen how it's done. If you look carefully, you can see the handles are made from their own hair, twisted and braided together in very long, sharp bone. You'd have to know what you were doing, I guess, or it would rebound on the practitioner. So don't try that at home, people of Earth, especially if you're not Aboriginal, because it would be a great violation of their law. Tempting though at times it might be. Don't mess with magic that's not of your own cultural background. You don't know what you're playing with. That's why I was looking for a real Kadachi man, a real one. Sad but true. By the gods, if I'd found one, they would have deserved everything he threw at them too. Evil they were, those things, creatures they were, half Aboriginal, half Indonesian. The evil actually came not from their Aboriginal lineage either, but through their father, the Indonesian. Oh, he was an evil man. Absolutely evil. My little daughter gets off the phone. Mummy, Buck says I should come and sleep over at Ormy, that means Grandma's house. Oh really, darling? Why is that? He's painted the room lavender, wants me to sleep there overnight. Said that will never happen. Unless over my dead body will you sleep one night in that house while that man is in that house. I even got a phone call from the family court here. Your mother wants grandparents' rights and wants access to the children. I said, oh, not with that man. He tells my daughter he's painted the room lavender so she can sleep there at night. What, they said? They know he will not, with my history of child sexual abuse. There's no way I will let my mother have my children there overnight with a man in the house. She simply cannot be trusted to protect my children in the same way she could not be trusted to protect my own little self. Oh, they said. Oh. But grandparents have rights, to have access to their children. And I said, that's fine. If she wants access to her grandchildren, she can see them through my ex-husband. They have a good rapport. They spent, most of my marriage colluding against me viciously, driving me almost to the brink of insanity with their viciousness. They're good mates. He can take them to see Ormy, supervised, stick around, make sure they're safe. Under no other circumstances are they to have access to my mother and that man. Said, do you understand? Yes, Mrs. Aarons, we'll make a note of it on the file. You will hear no more from us. Thank you, I said. Bang went the phone. It would have gone bang, but we already had a mobile phone in those days. I miss the old rotary phones, you used to dial when we were kids. And when you hung up, you could go slam the receiver, and the person on the other end of the phone would be in no doubt how enraged you were. Oh, it had le frisson. But anyway, that's how much perverted and evil my family of origin were, and that I actually considered finding a Kadachi man to turn all their evil right back at them. I wish I had to this day found someone. By the gods. It's not even about the fact that they robbed me of, my family home and land in Wellington Point and money and costing me lawyers and driving me into poverty. It's not even about money anymore. It's about natural justice. But anyway. So if there's a Kadachi man out there who sees this and can help me out, welcome to Sacred Space, your land, Titania's realm, fairyland as well. Just keep all the ancestors happy. Anyway, the end of the day, just got to move on and create my own happiness with good, kind, loving people. The dead man had been a member of the Malay tribe and had broken one of its laws governing incestuous relationships. Well, he deserved to die then. He really did. Following this, he had been summoned before a tribal council, had refused to attend, and in his absence had been sentenced to death. Take the rubbish out. You can't protect your own children from your tribal members, predators. Just have to take them out. Kanjika then fled his homeland, and the tribal executioner, the Malangawa, made and ritually loaded the killing bone, or kandila. The bone used may be human, kangaroo, or emu, or it may be fashioned from wood. Well, there you go. I didn't know it could be made from wood. The design varies from tribe to tribe. I suppose it would have to be a really hard wood. I'm just imagining this. I don't know. I'm not Aboriginal. I'm a white woman, but I'm guessing it would have to be a very hard wood, maybe even hardened by fire even. How would you do that? Because it would just burn in the fire. But anyway, somehow and made in the shape of a bone, so it had that sympathetic magic that it looked like a bone and had the same kind of sharp end like a piercing. It's interesting. As I said, if you don't come from that culture and that background, don't try that at home, people of Earth. It's just my thoughts on it. You do what you want, but you may suffer the consequences of your own actions, and it might blow back on you. And it's not wise to mess with other people's gods. Even when I began my working relationship with the voodoo god Papa Legba, for my protection, mind you, that's how intense it got. I actually, when I opened up to my Explained, I said, I'm a white woman, I'm not of your culture, I'm not even a practitioner particularly of your religion, I have limited knowledge, but I need your help, and if you deem me worthy, then I accept, with grace and deep humility, your assistance. And it was actually quite astonishing, because I said I'm white and Jewish and a witch. Introduced myself, that way. I said I'm short, fat hobbit, because I look like a hobbit with big feet. Got to be real, you're talking to a god. And I said I've got German and Polish heritage on my mother's side, and English, Irish and Scottish on my father's side, and I'm a Jew by choice. But if you deem me worthy, then I ask for your protection and your blessing. And I'm not always very psychic. I don't always have kind of auditory kind of hallucinations, I guess, auditory feedback. But when I said, I'm a honky, I'm poor, the only thing I have in common with voodoo is I tend to often be people who are poor. And he laughed. I heard the laughter, peals of laughter rolling back to me. And he said, "You're fine, Tanya. I accept your offering and your communication." I tell you what, I gave him an offering of Jack Daniels last week. He's drunk that down fast. He doesn't normally like Jack Daniels. It can sit there sometimes for 2 weeks before it finally evaporates, but it was almost gone within 4 days. I have to give him some more, and I'm running low on Jack Daniels. I've barely drunk any of it. It's all been offerings to him, because if you develop a relationship with a god, you have to maintain that. It is kind of a soul contract in a way. Something Christians freak out about because they think everything can, be averted or diverted through Jesus, but that's actually not how the real world works either. But shh, don't tell them. Let them have their dogma. The real world works with harmonic resonance with your land and the gods in your cultural background. I suppose if I lived in Germany or Poland, I'd have to call upon Slavic gods, which I have very limited knowledge of. Someone on the Hocus Focus group often puts up really interesting stories about the Slavic gods, which are, to my mind quite amazing, but I don't live there. It is my ancestry, but I don't feel a connection to it because I've never lived there, never walked that land and been in tune with those spirits. I have more of an affinity to, in a sense, the Fae and the spirits of this land here, Australia, Brisbane, Queensland, my sacred space, because it's where my feet touch the ground, and it's amazing. It's amazing, people of Earth. Anyway, let us carry on. So, the bone used may be human, kangaroo or emu, or it may be fashioned from wood. The design varies from tribe to tribe. Most are from 6 to 9 inches long, pointed at one end and shaved to a smooth roundness. At the other end, a braid of hair is attached through a hole, or with a resinous gum derived from the spinifex bush. To be effective, the kundila or kundila, I don't know if it's kundela or kundela, must be charged with powerful psychic energy in a complex ritual that must be performed faultlessly. The process is kept secret from women and all who are not members of the tribe, so it's secret men's business only. If the condemned man has fled from his village, the loaded bone is given to the Kadaicha, the tribe's ritual killers. The Kadaicha take their name from the special slippers they wear when hunting a condemned man. These are woven from cockatoo feathers and human hair and leave virtually no footprints. The hunters clothe themselves with kangaroo hair, which they stick to their skin after first coating themselves with human blood, and they don masks of emu feathers. Usually operating in twos or threes, they are relentless and will pursue their quarry for years, if necessary. I like that. I like that, people of Earth. Get your man. Get him good. Never quit. Never cede. Never yield. Psychedelic dreamer dreams. When the hunters finally corner their man, they approach to within 15 feet or so, and one Kadaicha, or hitman, dropping to his knee, holds the bone in his fist and points it like a pistol. At this instant, the condemned man is said to be frozen with fear. The Kadaicha thrusts the bone toward him and utters a brief, piercing chant. He and his fellow hunters then withdraw, leaving the pointed man to his own devices. When they return to their village, the kandila is ceremonially burned. It's interesting, they don't keep the weapon, they destroy it after they've done their magic. The condemned man may live for several more days or weeks, but convinced of the kandila's fatal power, his relatives and members of any other tribe he may meet, who will certainly have heard that he has been pointed, treat him as though he were already dead. The ritual loading of the kandila creates a psychic counterpart of the bone, a spear of thought, as it has been described, which pierces the condemned man when the bone is pointed at him. Once he has been wounded, the victim's death is certain, as though an actual spear had been thrust through him. John Godwin, Unsolved, The World of the Unknown, pages 163 to 76. Ronald Rose, Living Magic, pages 30 to 36. The Song of Death. Almost. In mid-April 1956, in Arnhem Land, Australia, a young Aborigine named Leah Wulumu fell sick. It was taken by airplane to a hospital in Darwin. He was unable to eat or drink because, although he tried, he could not swallow. There was, however, no apparent cause for his malady. Examinations, including x-rays, blood tests and spinal taps, revealed nothing unusual. What was going on in the victim's mind was another matter. He asked an attending Methodist minister to pray for him because, as he said, me bin sung and me finish. That means they can sing your death as well. It's kind of chanting prayers where they sing you to your death. When they say, I've been sung, means he knows that there's a hex upon him. The singing to which Wulumu referred is a form of ritual execution practiced by his people. In his case, a group of women were requested by his mother-in-law to sing him to death, perhaps in reprisal for some taboo that he had broken. To inaugurate the ritual, the women stole Wulumu's spear and throwing stick, Woomera, and put them in a ceremonial log. Then they sang the songs that are believed to put the curse of death on the owner of the captured objects. After the singing, his club, Nala Nala, was displayed in a treetop to signify the successful conclusion of the curse. When Wulumu saw the weapon, he knew what had transpired, and when he tried to swallow, he could not. Wulumu would surely have died had it not been for the iron lung. Because of its respiratory support capability, he became convinced that the white man's magic was greater than that of his tribe. He was right. John Godwin, Unsolved, The World of the Unknown, page 169. The Times, London, August 14, 1956. The deadly magic of believing. From the days of ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia to modern times in Haiti, Australia, Africa, and elsewhere, healthy people have turned sick and died because a hex, curse, or spell was put upon them. There is a considerable body of literature on the subject. So you can imagine my shock and horror when in early December 2008 I go to clean out my mother's home with the permission of the public trustee, because they knew I was about to be royally screwed by those bastards. So they let me have my mother's chattels, some of which I still have here. Got rid of most of it, but still got a few nice pieces left. And we opened up my mother's pantry, and there were 4 jars, in each jar a photocopy of a photograph, which was the last photograph they had of me from 2004 when my sister visited and from New Zealand, and we had a lovely day, my mother and my sister and I. We actually went to the art gallery. I think it was to see, if I remember correctly, it was to see an exhibition on the pharaohs, or the mummies from the pharaohs. Anyway, I might be wrong about that, but at any rate, we went to the art gallery. And I remember vividly when that photo was taken. I was very fat and very bloated from all the psych meds I was on. I think I was on a Abilify in those days. And I was all swollen looking. My hair was still short because not long before that I'd had all my dreads that I had for 6 months cut off. Jasmine cut them off. She was so thrilled to get rid of my dreadlocks. But I had to get rid of them because my hair is so dead straight that they were just breaking and falling off. So that was the end of my dread phase. So, but at this point in time, when the photo was taken, it must have been around about November 2004, October, November, my hair had grown back, so it was still short, but it looked okay. It wasn't all chopped up like when she hacked my hair off. And so I had short hair and I was very large. I was wearing this beautiful black blouse and very nice skirt. And they took this photo of me. My sister must have given my mother a copy of the photograph, not knowing that my mother was going to use it for nefarious reasons. So 2008, I always wondered why I could never get up and out from under like my mother's oppression. I always wondered how she had this hold over me. Never understood it. And I thought, oh, it's because I'm on the psych meds that I'm, mentally so unwell and struggling from that. And which was a lot already to contend with, just coping day by day on those hefty psych meds, which did me no good at all. Did nothing to cure my complex PTSD. Not one solitary thing. Didn't even stop me from a suicide attempt ultimately. It's when I realised there was no point being on them. They didn't even protect me from that. It's bullshit, people of Earth. It's pure fucking poison and bullshit. Sorry to my psychiatrist, but he knows. He knows I'm treatment resistant. They did nothing. So anyway, we get there to my mother's house in Jellicoe Street. We open up the pantry, looking for things that were worth taking into my possession. We left a lot of shit behind too because we couldn't be bothered. Too much shit. Oh, my mother was a hoarder. But anyway, and in the top pantry were these 4 jars with the same photograph of me with my short hair and face and sitting smiling, looking outwards of the jar. She had me literally trapped in 4 different jars. The same photo trapped inside these jars. Jared took one look at it because Jared's a pagan and spiritual like me. He said, oh my God, Tanya, no wonder you could never fight back against them. They were doing black magic on you or voodoo on you to all intents and purposes. They had you trapped in the jar. He said, no wonder you've been so ill and couldn't have the strength to even fight back. I said, well, that's all about to change now, isn't it? So, but I still lost the will dispute because they were just so vicious and so filthy and told so many lies. And ultimately, somewhere along the way, my lawyers, who were just only in it to claw money out of the whole thing, financially raped me. Let them have the lot, let them win. So yes, I needed a Kadachi man, even back then, when my mother was still alive, to counteract their evil practitioners of magic against me. It wasn't enough what she put me through as a child. She had to continuously up the ante and up the ante and up the ante. For what reason, actually? That I dared to survive her? That was my only cry. Survival. Well, here we are, babies. The methods of declaring the curse are many and varied. Can be done by making an effigy of the victim and piercing it with pins or burning it. Wax, wood, clay, cloth and straw have all been used for the purpose. Hair or fingernail parings from the victim can be ritually hexed. Chants and singing can declare a curse. Stones or weapons can be magically charged, or a container if magically endowed powders or herbs can be used to cast a spell. Although methods differ, the magic works when there is sufficient belief in its power. The sorcerer must have absolute confidence in its powers. The victim must believe that his magic is unassailable. And the community at large must subscribe to the belief. The latter is especially important. One can imagine the effect in the cultures where the community looks upon the victim as dead from the moment the curse becomes known. The victim may cease to eat and drink as befits the dead, which serves to hasten the end. I know I lay in an almost catatonic state for 3 fucking weeks in 1996. I think that was not just the effects of, the strangulation and the trauma from that, but I think my mother was dabbling in something even back then too. Evil she was. Evil piece of shit. Evil. I grew in that thing's womb. Hard to reconcile. Hard to imagine that you could be spawned by such evil. One well-documented method of killing by suggestion is bone pointing, a form of ritual execution occasionally practiced by the Aborigines of Australia. There is no physical contact with the victim, but his fate is usually as firmly sealed as if he were run through the heart with a spear. The pointing victim can be made of bone, wood, or stone. Belief in its magic is what counts. A graphic description of the effects of bone pointing is given in Dr. Herbert Basildell's book, The Australian Aboriginal, published in 1925. A man who discovers that he is being boned by an enemy is indeed a pitiable sight. He stands aghast, with his eyes staring at the treacherous pointer, and with his hands lifted as though to ward off the lethal medium, which he imagines is pouring into his body. His cheeks blanch and his eyes become glassy, and the expression of his face becomes horribly distorted. Pardon me. And he attempts to shriek, but usually the sound chokes in his throat, and all one might see is froth at his mouth. His body begins to tremble, and the muscles twist involuntarily. He sways backwards and falls to the ground, and for a short time appears to be in a swoon. But soon after he begins to writhe, as if in mortal agony, and, covering his face with his hands, begins to moan. After a while he becomes more composed and crawls to his whirly hut. From this time onwards he sickens and frets, refusing to eat and keeping aloof from the daily affairs of the tribe. Unless help is forthcoming in the shape of a counter-charm administered by the hands of the Ngangari or medicine man, His death is only a matter of a comparatively short time. If the coming of the medicine man is opportune, he might be saved. A possible physiological explanation for the victim's response to bone pointing has been suggested. The consequences of extreme fear are similar to those of great rage. The adrenal glands increase their production of adrenaline, reducing the blood supply to the less essential parts of the body in order to ensure an adequate supply to the muscles, upon whose efficiency for flight or fight the life of the subject may depend. Adrenaline produces this result by constricting the small blood vessels in those parts of the body that can temporarily survive a reduced blood supply. The advantage acquired in this way, however, is gained at some cost. When blood supply is reduced, so is the supply of oxygen which is carried in the blood by the red corpuscles. When the fine capillary blood vessels are deprived of oxygen, they become more permeable to the blood plasma, which seeps into the tissue surrounding the blood vessel. The consequence of this is a prolonged condition of fear or anger. In a prolonged condition of fear or anger, is an overall reduction in the volume of circulating blood, which is how the Resilio babies basically tried to kill me by keeping me and my children in constant terror for 18 months out there at Waterford West. Very debilitating that was. Again, I don't know how I survived all of that either. And I pray to all the gods that those bastards pay for that. One day, soon, 25 years later, those evil, dirty bastards. That's how I ended up with hyperhomocysteemia from the constant chronic stress they had me under, with me trying to raise 2 little girls on my own. Evil they were, but they didn't act alone. Mum and Buck were involved in all of that. It's beyond human comprehension that they were actually colluding with them. But I had confirmation from that from my Aboriginal neighbour next door to me when I moved away to Logan Lee. She said, I see them driving past every Wednesday on the way through to Terry's place. They meet with him every Wednesday. She said, you can't trust your own mother, Tanya. I said, well, thank you for that confirmation. She had me doubting my sanity, thinking I was crazy the whole time. No, they were all enmeshed, all 12 of them, and members of the Jewish community supporting them in that too. I can still name you to this day. Don't worry, Mama T never forgets. Kadachi man, anyone? Kabbalist, anyone? The most filthy and rotten was that Emmanuel Mesher's colluding with them. Lies there with the fanciest grave in the Brisbane cemetery. But I'm a woman of honour. Still put a stone on my enemy's grave. You have to laugh. Filthy they were, all of them. Well, now they have to deal with their maker. It won't be pretty. His henchman Davidson still cycles around me from time to time, begging my attention and or forgiveness. It's ridiculous is what it is. I've noticed he hasn't been around lately, so that's a good thing. Means he's finally evolved. Thank the goddess for that. Has nothing new to teach me. Right, where were we, people of Earth? Ah yes, in a prolonged condition of fear or anger, literally reduces your volume of circulating blood, which is why Kabbalah teaches to never actually allow yourself to get angry. Well, sometimes anger can be healing, but living in a perpetual state of anger without any real reason, like my father and my mad mother, pointless. Don't get angry, people of Earth. Get even. I don't even have any interest in getting revenge anymore, though, because I know my gods and my angels will take care of business for me, if not in this incarnation, then in the next, and the next, and the next, and they will be relentless like the Kadachi man. They will not let go till there is natural justice, equilibrium, balance. It's all I ask for, nothing more, nothing less. To see my enemies be brought to justice, albeit natural justice, in my own lifetime with my own eyes. Got to see that 2008 as well. Beautiful it was. Thank you, Holy One. We don't always have a good relationship anymore since I don't observe the Jewish Shabbat and I go dancing wildly on Friday nights, drinking and shamanically dancing. But he hasn't. He's never forgotten me and I've never forgotten him. Aye, Asher, aye. I am whom I am becoming. Blessed be the Holy One, the true judge. Amen. This in turn reduces the blood pressure, and a potentially disastrous cycle can then be established. The reduced blood pressure adversely affects those parts of the body responsible for maintaining the circulation of the blood, and the reduced circulation further reduces the blood pressure, so it's a feedback loop. The sequence of events, if unchecked, will be fatal. That a hex, spell or curse can rate such physiological disorders is mystery enough. Even more puzzling are cases of death in which medical examination reveals no evidence of either reduced blood pressure or an abnormal accumulation of red blood cells. One example is that of Kinjika, the Malay tribesman whose death is described on pages 107 to 108. Another is a report by Dr. P.S. Clark concerning a Kanaka tribesman in North Queensland, Australia, who said that he was going to die soon because a spell had been put on him. The doctor's examinations revealed no medical problems, but a few days later, the man was dead. It would seem But in societies where the effects of a curse are accepted as common knowledge, there is no question that the spear of thought can kill. Right. I think we've got enough time to continue on with the zombie stories coming up, which I'm particularly looking forward to. Zombie, 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 bee, bee. Well, I'm a zombie no more. They failed. They failed every aspect to kill me. But not without leaving me with quite some residual damage still. There are many ways of dying, people of Earth. Many, many ways. The most grueling of all is soul death. So face everything and rise. Never let the bastards grind you down. Reclaim yourself. No matter what, no matter who. A mother's curses. Not all cursed deaths take place in primitive places. The following events, for example, occurred in Oklahoma in 1960. The case involved a man who had been raised by a very domineering mother. When he decided to open a nightclub, she helped him finance it and then stayed on to assist with the management. Some 14 years later, at age 38, he married and soon after decided to sell the club. His mother warned that if he sold out, something dire will happen to you. 2 days after her threat, the man, with no prior history of respiratory trouble of any kind, began to experience a mild attack of asthma. Nevertheless, he went ahead and sold the club. The day after the transaction, he called his mother to tell her about it. She once again told him that something will strike you. His asthmatic condition worsened at once. He was rushed to the hospital. A psychiatrist was able to help him see the link between his illness and his mother's warnings, and the asthmatic condition began to subside. Feeling better, the man began plans for another business, this time without his mother. Then one day he called to tell her about it. She did not try to dissuade him, but told him to expect more dire results if he persisted. Within an hour of that fateful phone call, he had another attack of asthma and died from psychosomatic medicine. 26:104 to 107, 1964. Living on the run. The kandila is used by the Aborigines for initiation ceremonies against enemies and against those who have broken tribal laws. Within those spheres, its power is awesome. I would like to see that, but as a white woman, I wouldn't be allowed, because I'm a woman, number one, and a white woman. But it would be amazing to see that in action. Really amazing. My eyes light up just thinking about it, people of Earth. Of course, only if it's well deserved, like well merited, not just, they would never do such a thing lightly or randomly. There seems to be only one instance of a man surviving after being condemned to die by the bone without the antidote of white man's medicine. The man, Alan Webb, a full-blooded Aborigine of the Arunta tribe, had shot a fellow tribesman during a struggle over a rifle. In April 1969, the court found that Webb had been attacked and that the rifle had gone off accidentally. He was declared not guilty of the manslaughter charge. Outside the courtroom, after the verdict had been returned, Webb was met by a tribal delegation. The white men's court was irrelevant, he was told, and he would have to stand trial before his peers among the Arunta. Webb knew very well what the tribe's verdict would be. He had killed a member of his own tribe, therefore he must die. He promptly left Alice Springs and was sentenced to death in absentia by the Aruntas. This time, the Kadaicha had a more difficult task than usual. Their quarry was driving a van and living in it with his wife, 2 children, and 3 dogs. He slept with a rifle at his side, ready to be awakened at any moment by the barking of the dogs. By 1976, the date of the last available information, Alan Webb had managed to evade the Kadaicha for 7 years, earning his living doing odd jobs and moving on whenever he heard that the death squad was coming his way. Imagine living with that chasing you down. That's enough to drive you mad or make you sick from constant stress alone without them even doing anything to you yet. Wow. It is improbable that anyone has survived an Aboriginal death sentence for a longer period, but Webb knew, and perhaps still knows, that the Kadaicha would never abandon their pursuit. And although he spent his life on the fringe of white society, he realised that if his hunters ever came close enough to point the kandila, he would be as good as dead, killed without trace of injury by nothing more substantial than a spear of thought. John Godwin, Unsolved: The World of the Unknown, 175 to 76. Zombies, The Walking Dead. There are those in Haiti who believe that voodoo priests, Hungans, have the power to resurrect the dead. The Hungan steals the soul from the corpse, which he then reanimates as a mindless automaton, a zombie. Try shuffling and drooling on heavy psych meds with Parkinsonian symptoms for 15 fucking years. To be fair, the Parkinsonian symptoms were a cause of the cogentin I was put on. It sent me blind for 5 days, and as a consequence I needed glasses. Dr. Donis, well, he didn't realise he was getting old. I never got angry with him for that. You know, when you're nearly 80 and you're still practicing, it's a lot, people of Earth. It wasn't malicious. The chemist, the fucking chemist, should have picked up that it was a way too high dosage. Just saying. Doctors and chemists that have tried to kill me in my lifetime. If it wasn't my own mother and other predators, it was my own government with their systemic abuse as well. So excuse me while I scream and sing Zombie. Anyway, This poor creature will, if certain precautions are taken, do his master's bidding ever after. So thankfully I'm not an actual zombie reanimated corpse, because I do the bidding of no man. If I make things for my beautiful friends as magical talismans, it's because I wanted to, not because anyone ordered me to, although there might have been a little bit of unconscious influence from my angels, perhaps. One can never really tell. That is the only being that I will take orders from. God, and perhaps his angels. No mortal man owns me. Ever! Ever! It's been far too much. Let me just plug my phone in because it's about to die. Right. Perhaps I'll sleep after I finish this video because I'm living on 2 hours sleep after the wild, electrifying, energising dance last night. You'd think I'd be tired, wouldn't you? That's how innovating it can be for me at times. The marks of the dead. Love and revenge play large roles in voodoo, and one must always be careful not to offend the wrong people. A Hungan made advances to a certain girl, but she, being engaged to marry a man whom she loved, rejected him completely. The enraged Hungan, how do you pronounce that? Houngan, Hungan, because it's hoodoo, it's voodoo. The enraged Hungan was heard muttering threats as he departed, and within a few days the girl fell ill and died. Well, that's not fair. She was doing the honourable thing. She was being faithful to her beautiful fiancé. You see, it's all the rotten evil practitioners out there. Her family brought the body back to their village for burial and then discovered that the coffin ordered from town was too short. The neck had to be bent to fit the body inside. Oh my God, how horrific is that? Dear Goddess. At the wake, someone accidentally dropped a cigarette on one foot of the corpse, which left a small burn. A few months later, it was whispered that this girl had been seen in the company of the Hungan she had previously rejected, but there was no evidence and the story was soon forgotten. Then some years later, the girl reappeared at her home. The Hungan had repented and released all his zombies. She was positively identified by many people who had attended her funeral and who remembered her bent neck and the burn mark on her foot. Alfred Métraux, Voodoo in Haiti, Hugo Charteris. Voodoo ceremonies. Blending elements of the Roman Catholic faith with tribal religious beliefs, African slaves in Haiti developed the rituals of voodoo. Ceremonies with singing, drumming, and dancing are often held to summon and win the favour of a particular loa or god. During these sessions, the loa may take possession of some of the worshippers. In a trance, they begin to dance with increasing frenzy until they finally collapse on the ground. This is taken as a sign that the loa has been propitiated and his special aid may be invoked. Haitian voodoo is practiced in some places in the United States. This doll stuck with pins was found with a beheaded chicken, both associated with voodoo magic, in a New Orleans cemetery in 1981. They're a bit hard to see because they're all in black and white. I'll just show you the photos. There's the doll there. Doesn't particularly look like a doll, but I mean, if they think it's a doll, then so be it. And there's symbols drawn on the floor there or the ground. One day, if I ever get enough money, I'd like to go to New Orleans and actually see how it, meet actual practitioners, and if I'm allowed, being a white woman, see their actual ceremonies. Be fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Yes, provided they're not doing hoodoo on me, of course. Not wanting to see anything malevolent, just see their religious, spiritual practices is what I mean by that. Voodoo ceremonies, led by Hungans or priests, are held on the earthen floor of a temple or in the courtyard. The Hungans' aides hold rattles that will be used later for the dancing. The Hungans draws veves, symbols of the loa or deity, on the ground with cornmeal flour. The heart shown here symbolizes Ezuli, the god of love. At the bottom is a design indicating that everything in life has a limit. As the ceremony concludes, symbols of other loa are added by the Hungans. Oh, I see, so that's what they're showing, the more complex drawings underneath. They were added what looks like a dolphin, a snake, and various stars, like a giant leaf. Right, how much time have we got left? We might just be able to squeeze it all in. Right, here we go, babies. Return to the grave. If ever a zombie learns of what has happened to him, he is said to become totally uncomfortable, and salt is reputed to be a substance that can trigger such awareness. In his book, The Magic Island, published in 1929, William B. Seabrook reported one such horrifying event which took place a few years earlier. A Hungan named Joseph had a number of zombies whom he used as cane cutters at Hasco, the huge factory and plantation of the Haitian American Sugar Company on the outskirts of Port-au-Prince. Joseph's wife, who was looking after the zombies, made the irrevocable error of feeding them some candy that contained salted peanuts. My favourite peanut brittle. I often make allusions to that in my writing, including yesterday, Valentine's Day, talked about being brittle and the chewy core. Anyway, Mama Tea. Upon ingesting you have to laugh. Upon ingesting the salt, the zombies instantly realised their terrible situation and determinedly set out for their home village. When they arrived, they were recognised by their families, who tried to waylay and talk to them. But the zombies were unstoppable and pressed on until they reached the cemetery. There they tried desperately to dig their way back into their graves with their bare hands, but as they touched the earth, they reverted to rotting corpses. William B. Seabrook, The Magic Island. How can this be, people of Earth? How can this even be possible? The cotton pickers. On a field trip in Haiti in 1930, French anthropologist Georges de Roquet had an opportunity, most unusual for a Caucasian, to observe 4 zombies, although he was not allowed to touch them. De Roquet, who had the advantage of being fluent in Creole and was accompanied by a knowledgeable Haitian guide, recorded the experience in his journal. Toward evening, we encountered a group of 4 male figures coming from the nearby cotton field where they had been toiling. I was struck by their peculiar, shambling gait, most unlike the lithe walk of other natives. The overseer with them stopped their progress, enabling me to observe them closely for some minutes. They were clothed in rags made from sacking. Their arms hung down by their sides, dangling in a curiously lifeless fashion. Their faces and hands appeared devoid of flesh, the skin adhering to the bones like wrinkled brown parchment. I also noticed that they did not sweat. Neither does Prince Andrew, apparently. Yes, I went there, the animal. Although they had been working and the sun was still very hot, maybe someone should turn him into a zombie. Be well deserved in his case. But he's still alive, isn't he? I was unable to judge even their approximate ages. They may have been young men or quite elderly. The most arresting feature about them was their gaze. They all stared straight ahead, their eyes dull and unfocused, as if blind. They did not show a spark of awareness of my presence, even when I approached them closely. To test the reflexes of one, I made a stabbing gesture towards his eyes with my pointed fingers. He did not blink or shrink back, but when I attempted to touch his hand, the overseer prevented me, saying that this was not permitted. My immediate impression was that these creatures were imbeciles made to work for their keep. Baptiste, however, assured me that they were indeed the zombies, that is, dead persons resurrected by sorcery and employed as unpaid labourers. Why don't we say it what they really are? Employed as slaves. Duroquet watched as the zombies were locked up in a tiny windowless shed, much smaller and more strongly built than the usual thatched peasant huts, and suggested to Baptiste, his guide, that they should investigate this prison. But Baptiste, who until now had shown a cool detachment, became very frightened and insisted that they depart immediately, telling Duroquet, who was armed, that a gun was often a useless defence in Haiti. A $12 slave. Although in general the educated upper classes in Haiti profess to be skeptical of voodoo, wealth and knowledge do not necessarily offer them adequate protection against sorcery. A well-to-do society man, a monsieur, had a flat tire outside a small village. When he got out of the car to change the tire, he was approached by a small, white-bearded old man, actually a Hungan, who offered to obtain help from a friend and suggested that, meanwhile, the monsieur should return to his home for coffee. En route, the Hungan confessed that he had used a spell to cause the flat tire and, over coffee, warned the monsieur that there was a wonga, an evil charm, hidden in his car. Noting the monsieur's amused disbelief, the Hungan became annoyed and asked his guest if he had known Monsieur Celestin, who had died 6 months earlier. Celestin had been a very good friend, the monsieur replied, whereupon the Hungan asked the monsieur if he would like to see his friend, and without waiting for an answer, cracked his whip 6 times. In response, a man entered the room backward, a figure vaguely familiar to the monsieur. When on the Hungan's order, the man turned around, the monsieur recognized his former friend, Celestin. But this was not quite the Celestin of old. He now stood unmoving, head hanging, face utterly expressionless, speechless, and giving no sign of recognition. A zombie. The monsieur was stunned. The Hungan explained that Celestin's death had been caused by a spell cast by a sorcerer, who had then transformed him into a zombie and sold him to the Hungan for $12. Life's cheap, but even cheaper when you're dead. It's an astonishing thought, isn't it? Wonder what my carcass is worth in the black market by now. Oh no, God forgive me. We better not go there, people of Earth. The woman who has survived 15 near deaths in her lifetime. It's enough. I'm done. Just want to live fully and vibrantly and be in love with a wonderful man who's in love with me back and live my best life. I deserve that much after being not quite a reanimated corpse, but close enough for 30 fucking years. That's why you must never fuck with the Tanya. She's outlived most of her enemies. Most of them. There's only a couple still alive and they'll meet their maker and they'll pay their consequences at their appointed times when the gods decide. Because if I was an evil woman, they would have all been paying a long, long time ago. 25 years ago, in fact. But I'm content to let karma be karma. Take its sweet time. Get them when they least suspect it. Think they've got away with it. That, my friends, is the best revenge of all. One I need never even participate in because I'll have moved on and be happy, and when I enter the next dimension, none of any of that evil crap will even matter anymore. So it'll be an ever spiralling karmic wheel that's a gift that keeps giving and I won't even remember. Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it? How the world really works. Wandering zombie. That the belief in zombies is not restricted to superstitious peasants. Shut up, Davidson. He knows. He's paying. He's paying. He knows. Let me begin again. I didn't even hear him say a word. I just felt the energy. That's all I have to know. Wandering zombie is paying for his crimes against womanhood, not just myself, but many, many, many other women. Oh, he's paying. It's beautiful. That the belief in zombies is not restricted to superstitious peasants is demonstrated by this report attested to by a Catholic priest. It was said that one day in 1959, a zombie shambled into a village in Haiti and wandered into the courtyard of a private house where he was apprehended by the resident. This man tied the zombie's hands and took him to the local police station. The police eventually gave the zombie a glass of salt water to revive his memory, and the zombie, his mind cleared, told the police his name. It was discovered that he had an aunt in the village who was then called in to help clarify the situation. As soon as she arrived, the aunt positively identified her nephew and swore that he had died 4 years previously and that she had attended the burial. I can hear the faint sound of like a bass, like someone's stereo, like a bass. First I thought it was a drum going boom, 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 boom. Like, oh, that's interesting, but no, it's I can hear the bass going up and down, up and down. It's amazing what you can hear in the quiet of your home, minding your own business and business. When questioned by the village's Catholic priest, the zombie reported that he was just one of many zombies held in thrall by a local Hungan. Hearing of this, the police, who were terrified of this man's power, offered to return his zombie, but 2 days later, the unfortunate being was found dead. Acting on the assumption that the Hungan had killed the zombie for reporting his activities to the authorities, the police arrested him for murder. The other zombies were not rescued, however. The Hungan's wife had herded them together and escaped with them into the hills. Man, Myth and Magic, Richard Cavendish edition, volume 22. I love that. I've only got the first 3 volumes, but I would love to have the whole encyclopedia. Anyone out there in the world that has got the rest of Man, Myth and Magic and is willing to gift it to me or sell it to me cheaply? Nobody sells those kind of books cheaply anymore. I bought them very cheap when I was 15 years old in a bookstore actually. But they only ever had the first 3 volumes. But yeah, it's even reading that out was powerful. Lots of powerful emanations came from reading that out. And I observed there were a lot of views on YouTube when I read that Man, Myth and Magic on that video. There's currently 150 views. So people really, really like that. Don't know why they liked it particularly, because it's just me with my New Zealand Australian accent reading it out, but there was something somehow that they resonated or vibrated with or responded to. It's odd. I don't always understand YouTube and why certain of my videos go viral. I consider it viral when there's more than 100 views, people of Earth, because I don't have a lot of people in my subscribers and I don't have a lot of viewers, but I'm okay with that. I do this just for my own enjoyment to fend off loneliness and isolation and give myself something to do and keep my mind active. And if you enjoy listening to me reading in stories and benefit from it in some way, including my real life magical experiences that I intersperse from time to time, if you enjoy that, then it's a feedback loop. We're all, what's the word? Symbiotically, as they say in Kabbalah, to learn is to teach and to teach is to learn. We're all in that kind of infinite loop, time loop, space-time continuum loop of deliciousness and knowledge and things that are, to my mind, are interesting anyway. Zombies Explained. This is here when they give their scientific rationale for things, which sometimes makes sense, sometimes it's just a bit glib in my opinion. Here we have a picture of an elderly man sitting on a grave. Clairvius Narcisse points to his name on the grave, from which he believes he emerged as a zombie slave. One investigator suggested that Narcisse may have been drugged, buried, and later disinterred. Here he is. He used to be a zombie, according to his account. The repeated reports of zombies, people in a trance-like state, working as slaves in the fields of Haiti, gained credence by virtue of a first-hand report by a former victim named Clairvius Narcisse from the village of Leicester. His story was related by the National Enquirer in 1982. Narcisse, who had always been in excellent health, suddenly and inexplicably took sick in 1962. The sister brought him to the Albert Schweitzer Memorial Hospital in Deschâtel. I couldn't get enough air in my lungs, Narcisse said. My heart was running out of strength. My stomach was burning. Then I felt myself freeze up. I heard the doctor tell my sister, "I'm sorry, he's dead." I wanted to cry out, to tell her that I was alive, but I was unable to move. The doctor examined him, pulled a sheet over his head and signed a death certificate. Later in the day, friends came to pay their respects, and Narcisse said that although he could see them and hear them, he felt no emotion. At the cemetery he heard the mourners lament and heard the dirt falling on his coffin. The next thing he remembered was standing next to the grave in a trance-like state. There were two men who refilled the grave, tied a rope around his wrists, and took him to a farm where he became a slave working in the fields with about 100 other unfortunate souls. According to Dr. Lamarck Douillon, director of the psychiatric centre in Port-au-Prince, the so-called zombies are people who have been drugged by a voodoo sorcerer, pronounced dead, buried, dug up from their graves, and kept drugged during their enslavement as agricultural workers. Narcisse thinks he had been enslaved for about 2 years when, one day, the overseer evidently failed to administer the dose of drugs that kept the victims in their subservient condition. Some of the zombies regained their faculties, realized the state they were in, and killed the overseer. Released from the effects of the drug, Narcisse soon became his normal self. He did not go back to his native village because he believed that the brother who lived there had made the arrangement to have him drugged by a voodoo sorcerer. But when, in January 1980, he heard that his brother had died, he decided to return to Leicester. So, 18 years after he was thought to be dead and buried, Clavius Narcisse walked back into the lives of friends and relatives who had mourned his passing nearly 2 decades before. Let's have another look at this amazing man to have survived that. Blessed be Clavius Narcisse. I hope you live a good and full and happy life for the rest of your life, as you well deserve to do so. So on that note, we finish today's very macabre and spooky readings, and that was a nice thing to end on, a nice happy ending. Someone who came back from the dead, literally, and got to go home and, reconnect with real friends and family who actually loved him and got to live out his life. Blessed be on that one. Blessed be. So, Mama T is living her best life. Might have something to eat for lunch now. It's now 1:25 p.m. and it's 31 degrees Celsius outside, though looks quite grey and murky. You wouldn't think so, but it's hot, 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 hot in the city tonight. So, well, this afternoon. So anyway, beautiful people of planet Earth, stay cool till after school, and remember, never let the bastards grind you down, and try not to end up a zombie. It's not a good quality of life, just saying. Live your very best life, with harm to none, in competition with none, in great honour and integrity, loving the ones who love you back. Peace in your heart, knowing there was nothing else you could have done differently, and just keep moving on, dancing wildly and sipping your Jack Daniels or whatever tipple you like to partake of occasionally, and whatever. Some of you don't drink, so that's okay too. And just be joyous. Be joyous. Life's short, but it's weird, and in between, from cradle to grave, there's a lot of weird things that can happen to a person. So, just keep moving and hot shoe shuffling, but not the zombie shuffle, because we've done that before. Just saying. Anyway, bye for now. Take good care. Be of good cheer.